Good afternoon to you. I'm meteorologist Dorien Miner here at Live 5 News. We want to give you the first alert because of newly designated potential tropical cyclone number 16. That's right. You can take a look right here on satellite. Not too good of a presentation right now, but you do see there is an area of low pressure just offshore. It's about 300 miles away from our shoreline, but you do see a lot of convection firing off on that eastward quadrant. And here's what it looks like now. Potential tropical cyclone 16. Right now, winds of 35 miles per hour, so it's very comparable to what a tropical depression would be. Remember that tropical storm criteria is 39 miles per hour or higher. And right now we're not seeing that, and we're really not seeing too much organization that would designate it between a potential tropical cyclone and a tropical storm. That difference really only comes between narrative, and that's because we want to be able to give you the first alert, to give you the warning before the storm makes landfall, even though it doesn't have all of the tropical characteristics necessary at this time. But you can see the tropical tracker does take this, making landfall into the Outer Banks and eventually bringing some heavy rainfall to parts of the mid-Atlantic and even portions of New England again. But right here locally, we do have three main impacts from this. Not as bad as what we've seen during Hurricane Idalia just a few weeks ago, but rainfall still very low inland, less than a ½ inch. Some of us may not see anything tomorrow, most of that activity actually being later today into tonight. But on the coast, could be expecting between a ½ inch, maybe even 2 inches or more in the parts of Georgetown County. And that's really the area where we're going to be watching the most from this system. The wind also very comparable. Most of this happening in the dry sector, and that's going to be winds up to 35 miles per hour, maybe locally higher along our shorelines and our lakes, where we could even see some lake wind advisories for the day tomorrow and going into the early part of Saturday. And then for our coastal impacts, we're going to be watching an offshore flow through much of this. And so we're not worried about the storm surge potential. Rather, we are going to be watching the potential for some rip currents and high surf associated with this system just because of how close it's passing to our area. But here's what it looks like across much of the mid-Atlantic and southeast. Tropical storm warnings in effect for some of the coastline from Maryland all the way down into North Carolina. It stops once it gets to the border here in South Carolina, and that's really just offshore where we do have tropical storm watches. Those have been replacing the gale warnings that we have in the area. So still expecting some very strong winds along the shore, but none of our actual counties are in that tropical storm watch. So taking a look at radar, still some showers associated with this ahead of this, and still watching these heavier pockets making their way into parts of Georgetown County, parts of Williamsburg County as well. And this has been moving really slow, but also has been pretty scattered in nature throughout much of the afternoon. Still some shower and storm activity making its way through parts of Walterboro just to the south there, headed towards Yemassee in the 95 corridor. But you can see here on Future Tracker, we'll stay dry much of the night tonight and just starting to introduce some more of those gustier conditions once we get into Friday morning. So the morning commute, do plan accordingly, especially if you have to travel on any bridges. Most of us remaining dry even through midday, and that's when we'll start to see some more activity into our northeastern zone. So Williamsburg and Georgetown counties, I would watch this in particular for that rain settling in during the midday hour. Now, once we get later in the day, still can see some showers and maybe some embedded thunderstorms north of I-26. That's really where we're going to be watching much of that potential occur, and that continues as we go into Friday night, early parts of Saturday morning. But most of us south of I-26 will be remaining dry from this system, and then eventually it will depart once we get into Saturday midday, and we'll be drying out and cooling off just a little bit more once we get to that time frame. Taking a look at the wind gusts, still not too bad right now. About 20 miles per hour is what we've been gusting at the airport much of the day. And as we go into the Thursday night and into parts of Friday, that starts to increase as we start to get that northerly component to the wind. So winds between 20 and 30 miles per hour still are not out of the question, and elevating a little bit more as that center of circulation makes its way into North Carolina. Could see some higher gusts towards the 40-mile-per-hour mark in the parts of Georgetown, Pawleys Island, and even there in Williamsburg County, where we could see some locally higher gusts as well. But the good news, this is going to be an offshore regime for us unless the models change significantly, which we're seeing a little bit more agreement over the past few hours now that we have an area of defined low pressure. So good news with that storm surge threat, keeping that at minimal in the area. But you can see here on the rain forecast, this will add up quite a bit once you get north of Georgetown. So parts of Horry County and into North Carolina could be seeing multiple inches of rain. Georgetown, we're cutting it off between 1 and 3 inches and almost nothing as you make your way towards Colleton County, lower parts of Charleston County, not watching that rain potential besides what we'll see this afternoon and evening. But still, for places farther to the north, we do have a level 2 out of 4 risk just for that flush flooding risk. Still could be watching those heavier pockets really train, and that can lead to some problems on the road, especially there where we've had a lot of heavy rainfall even today and really this whole month as a whole so far. But once again, just to recap, our top 3 impacts from potential Tropical Cyclone 16. This could be Tropical Storm Ophelia later, but for now, still watching that rainfall threat. Not too much in the way of rain except for parts of Georgetown County, keeping that wind below tropical storm force, and that coastal threat, no storm surge, but still watching the potential for some rip currents and high surf. We'll have more updates online, on air, and on the app. You can also find more information on our website. Go to Live 5 News/Hurricane. Have a great day.